I want to just introduce myself a little bit. I'm Dale Cray, and I'm a retired probation parole agent and also a retired police officer. And I've learned one thing about Karina is she has a way of recruiting people. You know, I thought once I retired I was done with the criminal justice system, and Karina had a way of finding me and then getting me back involved in this ministry. I currently serve on the board of directors with the Wings of God. And so as a representative of the board of directors, I'm the vice chair. I would like to just say thank you. This ministry got started as a result of a vision of 3 women, or 1 woman, and then she got a couple more, and then was able to get some other people involved. And it cannot happen now without people being involved in it, from the point of contributing financially, praying for it, and most importantly, what you guys have signed up to do is to volunteer and be a part of the ministry. We do feel this is a ministry, okay? It's not a program. The board of directors, that is our whole focus, that this is a ministry to this community, to reach people for Christ. And we're not ashamed of that, okay? And that is our main focus and goal. So if you keep that in mind, this is a Christ-centered program, so what you're going to be experiencing today is a lot of teaching that's out of the Bible as to why we should be involved in this type of a ministry. In my years since retiring, I have gotten involved in a lot of different volunteer opportunities. I have volunteered for hospice care of Southwest Michigan, and as a result of that, they required me to go through a very extensive training program. I think I put in over 40 hours of training before I was able to start volunteering, okay? I volunteer currently with the KPEP. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that, Kalamazoo Probation Enhancement Program. I'm a chaplain there, and we serve 3 different facilities right now for the residents there. This is a residential transitional housing for men that are either in the criminal justice system, and we're trying to keep them and help them make transition into the community in that. And we put on 4 different chapel services every Wednesday at the different facilities. And then I also serve at my church. I've been on several mission trips. And then I'm with the Wings of God. And we felt that in order to make this program really valuable, that part of what we were going to have to do is develop a training program for our volunteers. So you're getting a accumulation of a lot of different training that I've gone through, but one of the things that I experienced that probably was the most life-changing for me is a year ago, I just returned from Africa, Kenya, and went through a cross-cultural training program to help prepare us to lead mission teams in different parts of the world. And part of that requirement was that we read several books in advance before we went to this 10-day training program in Kenya. And one of the books that we were required to read was this Cross-Cultural Servanthood, Serving the World in a Christ-like Humility. And I found this to be so moving, challenging, convicting, that I felt like this was something before anyone serves in any capacity in anywhere in the world. I don't care if it's across the street reaching your neighbor, you need to understand the principles out of this book. And so, I've been a Christian most of my life, and I was so convicted by it. So what you're going to experience today is I've outlined this book, and we're going to go through this, most of the chapters of this book in a very fast pace. I tried to take the highlights out of this book. So it's not my information, but I'm going to also share a lot of personal experiences along the way as we look at this book and see how it might minister to you and challenge you to serve in a Christ-like manner. So hang on. I want to get started on this. And again, this is the book by Dwayne Elmer. I would encourage you to read it if you can, because it's informative, but it is really a lot of information in it too. So. We are not called to help people. We are called to follow Jesus, in whose service we learn who we are and how we are to help and be helped. So the first part is servanthood, the basic perspectives. In order to serve, we want to get some good ideas of what it requires to serve. You know, most of us think of the idea of just going in and serving at Wings of God, and it's going to be just all this, I'm just going to have all this opportunity, I'm just going to serve, and that's it. But a lot of it's going to be checking your heart. Are you in the right heart before you start serving in a ministry like this? Servanthood. It has burdens and it has challenges. It's burdens and challenge. So the question that this book really starts out by asking is, what could missionaries, and this was mainly meant to train missionaries, but we're all missionaries as Christians, but what could missionaries do to more effectively minister the gospel of Christ in your culture? What do you think? Anybody got an idea? Have you ever thought about what our purpose is as Christians? Yes, go ahead. Okay. And you got to understand, missionaries in the past, okay, had the idea that these were people that needed change. They had to be changed into something, okay, that they lived this awful life and we need to go in and change them. So that's very important. But this was the question that they would not ask the missionaries, but this is the question that they went and asked the people that were going to be served by the missionaries. And this is what you're going to be surprised to find the answer. The answer is missionaries could more effectively minister to the gospel of Christ if they did not think they were so superior to us. If they did not think they were so superior to us. Wow. Think about that now. These are the people that you want to serve in a culture, and you go in there and they think that you think you're superior to them. So, usually, superiority appears in disguises that pretend to be virtues. All right? We go into a situation of serving in a different culture, and in this case, what we're looking at specifically is serving women in a ministry that some of you are going to be completely foreign to. You've never spoken to someone that's had this kind of a criminal background or something. Okay? I remember the first time that I was, as a probation agent, I was sent in to interview a guy for a pre-sentence report that had committed 2 murders. Okay? And I'm in this little room to interview him. And think about it. You're sitting there across the table from somebody that had just killed 2 people. And how do you react to somebody, and you don't feel comfortable in those situations. And you really don't know how to react and respond to people. So we're going into situations that maybe some of us have never experienced before. And usually what happens is we are automatically triggered to believe that everything that we do will just be perfectly serving and doing what we're supposed to do, okay? And even if the other person can't see it, you go in there with an attitude sometimes that the other people see what your true, how you're coming across may not be what your heart is, but they see you in an entirely different manner. So what we're going to do is look at the different things that we pretend is I need to correct their error. Meaning I have superior knowledge, a corner of the truth. Can you see that? Where you might go into a situation with these ladies, if you're going to be ministering to them, that you're going to correct them. They've made all these mistakes, and you're going to set them straight. My education has equipped me to know what is best for you. So let me do the most of the talking while you do most of the listening and changing. Now, in this room, we've got a variety of people that have a variety of experiences, okay? Some of you are maybe professional counselors. Some of you are housewives. But you come in with a lot of experience, and some people are very educated and think that that will be enough. And this book and this challenge out of this study is that isn't enough, okay? The next one is, I'm here to help you, so do as I say. I'm here to help you, so do as I say. Another one is, I can be your spiritual mentor, so I am your role model. And part of our programming at Wings of God is to provide mentoring. And we want you to get a good definition of what mentoring really means. And the last one is, let me disciple you. And we're all, as Christians, led to believe discipling is a good thing. That is to equip you, train you, and often the person perceives it as, let me clone you into myself. Look at me. This is what you need to be, is how it comes across to the other person. So while we may see these as virtues, others see them as an attitude of superiority, and the Bible calls it pride. When we sort of start putting the focus on ourselves, it's all pride. So we want to focus on the good before pointing out the negative. We want to focus on the good before pointing out the negative. And that's going to be a big challenge for us, is to really, when you're meeting with someone from Wings of God, when you're serving, is that you really try to get to know the person, build a relationship with them, get to know what are some of their good qualities, is what the challenge is really here for us to. All right. To hold to a doctrine or opinion with an intellect alone is not to believe it. A man's real belief is that which he lives by. And what we're going to be challenging you today is the Christian faith requires something more than just acting. I mean, it really does look at the heart. And what we want to try to do is help you understand what true servanthood is. And it's choosing the towel or the robe. I've got these two metaphors up here, okay? And it's the choice that we make every day as we live our Christian faith. The towel or the robe. And both are found in Scripture, but there really is only one that's appropriate for a Christ follower. Now, the robe is a thing of special honor in the Bible, okay? In Luke, we saw, but the father said to his servants, quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. And the thing that we have to understand, though, that this robe, which is often symbolized by like kings wearing robes, special graduate, when you get to the point of having that honor of being graduating from, studying. Professors wear robes. Judges wear robes, okay? It is something that we put on people to give them recognition, okay? And yet the Bible says that only Jesus Christ is worthy of wearing that robe, okay? And we need to understand that as a servant, we need to take off the robe and let Christ wear the robe. Now, the towel We are not to follow him in his lordly role, but in his servant role. Did I give you that one? Okay, but Jesus alone rightly claims the title of Lord. And this Bible verse here says, "Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant. And whoever wants to be first must be your slave, just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many." So, what do we have to do to be a good servant? And we're going to look at some qualities of being a servant here. First of all, they have to be invisible. We don't do it for show. And, a lot of times this is going to require us to check our motives before we start serving. Why am I really serving? Am I doing it to make myself look good? To build my credibility or whatever? So when you're a servant, you are serving behind the scenes most often. You don't do it for recognition. They wear uniforms. When you think of a true servant, and I know sometimes uniforms, especially in our culture, we hold our military, our police officers, our firemen in high esteem, okay? But when I was a police officer, the slogan on our police cars were serve to the protect the community, okay? To serve and protect, okay? And that was our whole focus, was our purpose, not to get recognition. And uniforms usually bring about an attitude that we're all the same. You know where you can go. You can find somebody in uniform. You know that person's there to help you and serve you, okay? And that there's nothing special, okay? We're just uniform, okay? So this attitude about being in a uniform, you think about nurses and waitresses and maids and everything else that wear uniforms. It really is just to be recognized as being a servant. They perform lowly tasks. Servants really do the things that no one else wants to do. I remember an incident that my family went to Haiti, really our first mission trip as a family, and one of the opportunities that we had was to serve at Mother Teresa's Home for the Dying in Port-au-Prince. And in that, it's a very nice hospital. I mean, it's nothing like a hospital like we would serve. They had a men's ward and women's ward. And my daughter and wife, they went and served in the women's ward. And my son and I served in the men's ward. And one of the things they said that these guys really liked, and these were people that either had TB, were dying from TB or AIDS, most of them, okay? That these guys really liked getting haircuts and being, just, I'm not a barber, but I mean, I also served as a pharmacist while I was in Haiti, and I was a police officer. So they let you do things in Haiti that you wouldn't normally be able to do. So we cut hair, we cut toenails and fingernails, and then we would bathe them with washcloths and that. And my son was only 12 years old, and some of you know my son. There's a few of you from our church, and this boy is not that type of a person that is very humble, okay? But when I remember seeing him on his knees, at the foot of somebody and bathing their feet and cutting their toenails, it was just, wow. I couldn't believe where he was able to humble himself to that point of serving someone that had a need. And some of them, the appreciation that they had, it wasn't about us, it was about serving them. The next one, they remain largely silent. They really perform their task out of sense of duty without recognition or attention. If effective, they seem not to be there. People look past them and rarely acknowledge them until needed for a chore. I've been on several cruises also, and when you think about a cruise ship, and you have your director of cruise director that gets a lot of attention, okay? And you have the captain that they bring out, and you have the head chefs and that they always bring out to acknowledge in that. But do you know all the people that are serving you behind the scenes on a cruise ship? And they don't even get recognized for it. But without them, that cruise ship couldn't handle the passengers, and you wouldn't have a good vacation. And to see those people that are making your room up and serving you at dinner, and the entertaining staff and everything that goes into it, there's a lot of people that make it happen. And I often think about that is what it takes for any ministry, is it takes a lot of people performing a lot of the other duties that people don't get recognized for. They, went the wrong way there. So their rights are few. And then when you're a servant, you serve only with the attitude of serving. It's not what's right or fair. It's like I said, cutting someone's toenail may not be something that you really want to do, but if it's something that needs to be done, you're willing to do it. You don't think about, well, I don't think I'm the right person for this or anything else. You just go in with an attitude of serving. And their power is negligible. You have no power or control, but your impact that you can make on a person's life or in a culture is tremendous. Now, Jesus chose to come as a servant because it is the very nature of God to serve. If we are to be Christ-like, servanthood is not only what we do, but it's what we are as Christians. It must become our nature. When you think about that, when people think about Christians, is that the attitude that they have about us, that we're here to serve in the world? And a lot of times I think people, especially other cultures, think Christianity is arrogant. And that's not really what Christ wanted it to be like. Matthew 25:31 says, Jesus teaching at the end times in the kingdom of heaven, when the sheep will be separated from the goat. And when you look at that story that is related in that, it really is about what you did for the least of these people. It's not about who you were or anything else. It's what you did for the poor, for the hungry, for the people that were imprisoned. And that's how Jesus judges us as Christians. Because it says, for when I was hungry and you gave me nothing to eat, I was thirsty and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger and you did not invite me in. I needed clothes and you did not clothe me. I was sick and in prison and you did not look after me. The king will reply, truly, I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. That's how we're going to be judged, folks. Okay, the next part is humility. We've talked about servanthood. Now we're going to talk about the attitude of humility. And humility is the posture of the servant. Jesus humbled himself. And that's what we're called to do. I want to share a story out of this. Book that is called the story of the monkey serves the fish. Okay? A typhoon had temporarily stranded a monkey on an island in a secure, protected place on the shore while waiting for the raging waters to recede. The monkey spotted a fish swimming against the current. It seemed obvious to the monkey that the fish was struggling and in need of assistance. Being a kind heart, the monkey resolved to help the fish. A tree precariously dangled over the very spot where the fish seemed to be struggling. At considerable risk to himself, the monkey moved far out on the limb, reached down, and snatched the fish from the threatening waters. Immediately scurrying back to the safety of his shelter, the monkey carefully laid the fish on the dry ground. For a few moments, the fish showed excitement, but soon settled into a peaceful rest. Joy and satisfaction swelled inside the monkey. He had successfully helped another creature. The story does not tell us the degree of humility or arrogance the monkey possessed. But then that was not the real issue as far as the fish was concerned. The fish likely saw the arrogance of the monkey's assumption that what was good for monkeys was also good for fish. This arrogance, hidden from the monkey's consciousness, far overshadowed his kindness in trying to help the fish. Thus, good intentions are not enough. And we're going to be thinking about that story of the fish and the monkey throughout the rest of the session today. And, the monkey thought he was doing a good thing. And doing what was good for him might be good for the fish, but it ended up not being that. So, things that we need to remember as we're trying to serve other people and help other people in a humble attitude is others can't see our motives, only our actions. And understand this, that is the basis for their impression of us, is what our actions are. Next, humility isn't temporary. It isn't training for the next level, and it isn't the means to some higher end. And the next thing to remember is humility is a lifestyle, not isolated incidents. So it's not something that, as you're serving in the wings of God or wherever you find your opportunities to serve, it's not something you're just going to do once or twice a week. It really needs to be something that you take on as your whole lifestyle if you're going to come across in the right way. People have got to see you live this out 24/7 in your life, the way you treat other people. And I think a lot of times we think we'll go do something once a week and that's it. We don't need to do anything else. So humility is an attitude towards God, ourselves, and others that permeates our thoughts and deeds. It's an attitude towards God, ourselves, and others that permeates our thoughts and deeds. Clothe yourself with humility is what the Bible challenges. God knows what our heart is, and you feel it, and others will see it as we live out our faith. All right, what we're going to look at is servanthood as a process. If this is where we want to be, we want to serve at our goal is to be at the top, and it's up here. There's a process to get here is what we're going to be talking about today. So we're going to look at this backwards. In order to get to, it's like steps, okay? In order to get to being a good, godly servant, there are steps that we have to take to get there, is what this book is challenging us. And so what we have to do is if that's where we want to be, what do we have to start out with? And we're going to look at this process that Mr. Elmer says that is required for us to properly serve as a Christian. So there are the steps, and our ultimate goal is serving. So you can't serve someone you don't understand. At best, you will serve like the monkey if you don't understand that person. So the next step is understanding. we have to understand the culture, the people that we are serving before we're going to be able to properly serve them. So you can't understand others until you have learned about, from, and with them. So there's two steps of learning here. It's learning from people. There's some information that you can glean from the person, but you can also learn with the person together. So you can't learn important information from someone until there is trust in a relationship. So there's a couple key words there, is that trust. In order to gain trust, what do you have to have? How do you earn trust from somebody? Is it something that comes automatically? You walk in and you say, I'm going to serve here? It's through earning it in a relationship, building a relationship with the person. So to build trust, others must know that you accept and value them as people. To build trust, others must know that you accept and value them as people. So there's acceptance is one of the steps. Before you can communicate acceptance, people must experience your openness. And openness is your ability to welcome them into your presence. And that's hard, yeah. Pardon? Are the notes not? They must be out of order, I'm sorry. We need to go back? Where are we at? Where are you lost at? Sorry. So you got serving. We'll just start it and then you can go from there. Okay, serving. Okay. Thank you, Chris. It's the one with the steps. Let me look here.
Steps, but then it stops here. There's the one with the steps. Right there.
Oh, right here it is. Should be that one.
It says serving there.
Yes. Hopefully we can cut and paste this video. Do you have any more? See if mine's got it here. So I'm sorry, folks. At best, you'll serve like the monkey. Everyone got that? Understanding is the next step, and you can't understand others until you have learned about them from and with them. You can't learn important information from someone until there is trust in the relationship. So you have to build that trust in a relationship, spend time. And in order to get trust, others must know that you accept and value them as people. Accept and value them as people. And acceptance, before you can communicate acceptance, people must experience your openness. And that's your ability to welcome them into your presence and openness. Are we okay? Too fast? I thought maybe we were doing review here, so. All right. I told you weren't going to be bored. Where you at? All right, understand others until you have learned about them. Everybody? All right. Learning. You can't learn important information from someone until there is trust in the relationship. And then to build trust, others must know that you accept and value them as people. And then acceptance, before you can communicate acceptance, people must experience your openness, which is your ability to welcome them into your presence. And then openness with people, different from yourself, requires that you are willing to step out of your comfort zone to initiate and sustain relationships in a world of cultural differences. So we're going to look at each one of these areas, and we're going to start with the bottom step, the openness, and explore that and look at all the key elements of being open to someone so that we can get to the next step. All right? So our first one is we're going to look at the definition of each of these again. We're going to look at some biblical backgrounds and the pertinent skills that we would be required to have in order to serve in that area. So openness, everyone got that? Now find that in your packet. It should have the A there. Openness is welcoming others into your presence. This man welcomes sinners and eats with them. Can you imagine what Jesus would often go into situations that the Pharisees and all the priests and that would never go into? You know, he made a point of reaching people that the other churchy people wouldn't do it, okay? So the definition, again, of openness is the ability to welcome people into your presence and make them feel safe. The ability to welcome people into your presence and make them feel safe. So, what are some things that we can get out of that definition? Number one, it's an ability, which means you can practice and get better. You know, a lot of times we don't feel like, I want to do that. You know, I'm not good at that. Well, we make a lot of excuses not to do certain things. But this says it's an ability that you can acquire, that you can practice it and get better at it. And it's directed toward people like us and unlike us. My wife and I often think about who our circle of friends are, and sometimes we're most comfortable with the people that are most like us. You know, we want to be with other Christians. We want to do things. And we got a call yesterday that somebody wanted to, that's not our normal circle of friends, that wanted to go to the theater with us. And we said, what a great opportunity that is sometimes being with other people that you don't normally associate with. It's practice in culturally appropriate ways so others feel both welcomed and secure in our presence. So when you're open and you're serving, you do it in a way that's appropriate in that culture. And especially when you serve in different third world, you have to understand that culture before you can go in and serve it. So the biblical background for serving or for openness is the cross. And the cross is the greatest symbol of openness. Think about it. Christ died for all. And, he spread his arms on a cross so that everyone could come to him. And openness is also captured in the biblical concept of hospitality that's mentioned in Romans 12:13, where it says, share with the Lord's people who are in need. We're challenged to practice hospitality. In Romans 16:23, Gaius, whose hospitality I and the whole church here enjoy, sends you his greetings. Titus 1:8, rather he must be hospitable, one who loves what is good, who is self-controlled, upright, holy, and disciplined. In 1 Peter 4:9, offer hospitality to one another without grumbling. And 3 John 1:8, we ought, therefore, to show hospitality to such people so that we may work together for the truth. Hospitality isn't something that's really natural for most of us. It's difficult to place others first because our inclination is to, in our own society here, is to take care of ourselves first. But Scripture warns us that our unwillingness to be hospitable may cause us to miss out on a divine encounter. When we touch other human beings for the good, of serving Christ, we are really touching God himself. I mean, that's what God put us here on earth for, is to interact with each other. Not to live on some island somewhere, but to have interaction with each other. And when we have that opportunity of being God's hands and feet, we are actually serving God and being God's hands. And it's always been something just, really shaking my boots anyway. So, another thing is sometimes we can honor others most in being hospitable by receiving their kindness and hospitality and music rather than trying to give to them. Have you ever thought about that? That sometimes being hospitable is just going in and being in relationship and enjoying somebody's company and seeing how they might bless you. So let me ask you this question. If you're serving at the wings of God, how might a resident serve you? How could they give you something? Right. Yeah, I mean, and there's many ways, yeah. I'll never forget one of the times that we were doing our K-PEP ministry is often, our tendency is I'm going to have one of the other leaders pray, or I pray, the opening prayer, the closing prayer. And we have tried to make it a habit now of allowing them to offer prayers if they. And I got to tell you, some of these guys can pray and it just puts me to shame, I think, sometimes. And to just be able to experience a person's prayer even, is giving them the opportunity. Yeah.
What I find is really beautiful is they have such an authentic, raw heart, and it's taught me that to break down my walls, to not be so guarded as to how I should behave, and to be raw with them.
Yeah. And I think you're going to find that as an opportunity every time you go there, just when you interact with them, is looking for opportunities for them to share and to just bless you in some ways. Yeah. Go ahead.
That same day that I went, my 4-year-old little girl was with me, and one of the ladies took her, set her up with paper, crayons, turned on PBS, took care of her, and that meant a lot more than coffee.
It's funny. Who's the gal that, I can't think of her name now, that broke her neck riding a horse and she's in ministry now? Yeah, Johnny Erickson. I heard her testimony once that diving accident, that's what it was. Yeah, that's right, I always get those messed up. But I heard her testimony once that when it became apparent that she was going to need people to come and serve her, that she would always make a big deal about how appreciative she was of them coming in to serve. And then she was convicted once by a study in the Bible. And she said from that point on, she would always close by saying, "You're welcome," to them. Instead of "thank you," she would say, "You're welcome," because she realized that they were receiving a blessing out of serving. And I said, wow, that is a different thought about serving. Is how many of our residents at Wings of God would say, "You're welcome." If we have the right attitude, that should be what they would say to us. Okay? Someone's clapping. I don't think it's for me even. So, all right. So let's look at some skills that you might need to be able to properly serve with an openness. Number one is you have to suspend judgment, suspending judgment. You can't go in there with a judgmental attitude, knowing what all they did and everything. That shouldn't even matter. Number two, tolerance for ambiguity, and that's living with that uncertainty. Practicing patience allows us to trust God and provides learning opportunities. So it's sort of that just going in there and not looking at their past or anything else, is just you're going to go in there with a tolerant attitude. Thinking gray. Things aren't always black or white, good, bad, right or wrong. Effective leaders are able to see the shades of gray or make wise decisions. I think for a lot of Christians, it's black or white. Okay? That's how we come across. And there are some things that you have to just sit back and say, is this one of those things that really that big of an issue that I got to make a big issue out of it? And look at the gray areas. There isn't right or wrong. It's just different. It's not what I would do, but doesn't make it wrong. Positive attribution, and that's assuming the best while not being naive. And that one's hard, is in Philippians 4:8, it says, "Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things." And what that is really challenging you to do is just to, when you're meeting with someone with the Wings resident or family, is that you go in there and try to think the best things about the person and not focus on the negative things. So our next step was acceptance, and that's communicating respect for others. And Jonathan Swift said, "We have just enough religion to make us hate, but not enough to make us love one another. Think about that. Definition is the ability to communicate value, worth, and esteem to another person. The ability to communicate value, worth, and esteem to another person. Are skills that are needed. Take the initiative in showing acceptance towards others, in making them feel valued and respected. Take the initiative to showing acceptance towards others in making them feel valued and respected. The next one is unconditionally accept others without considering their external factors, their lifestyles, decisions, habits, and so forth. And note, this does not mean you approve it, anything that they're doing. It's just that you accept them. You know, it's sort of that attitude of love the sinner but not the sin. Okay? And that's hard sometimes. We do not have the option of rejecting any person, though we may, in a culturally appropriate way, address behaviors that the Bible clearly states as sinful. And this is where confrontation comes into place, is you really need to do this in an appropriate way, okay? And the book does a lot about sharing stories of people going in and trying to change, third world country practices without knowing the background about how these practices got started. I mean, this is deep rooted, and it really took, in order for them to make some good choices and to make changes, they had to go in and build a relationship and then try to point out biblical reasons why something isn't the right way to do things. And when you're talking with a person one-on-one, you don't hit them with that the very first day. You have to have that relationship with them before you can start confronting them about what might be sinful in their life. Whoops, I went backwards again. Okay. We accept people, period, like Jesus did. And we must reject labels such as race, generation, and gender as defective guides for how to treat another human being. Accepting people and rejecting the labels and defective guides. We expect that accepting others in these ways may cost us dearly. All right, let's look at the next level is trust, building confidence in relationships. Anybody ever done that, one of those pit drill? Trusting people to catch you? All right, the definition of trust is the ability to build confidence in a relationship so that both parties believe the other will not intentionally hurt them, but will act in their best interest. It's having that confidence in a relationship that both parties believe the other will not intentionally hurt them, but will act in their best interest. So if you're in a mentoring relationship with one of the residents at Wings of God, understand that it is so important that both of you, the resident and you, have that level of confidence that the other one isn't out to try to hurt the other one. You're not going to be taken advantage of by the resident, and the resident's going to make some assumptions about you too then, okay? But have that confidence that you are there for the right reason. And that relationship, again, takes time. The ingredients of trust is time and risk. Time and risk. You've got to spend the time, and you've got to take some risk. And it's mostly emotional. There will be difficulties in any relationship, but you work through them for resolution by clarifying misunderstandings. And sometimes you got to admit you were wrong. You apologize when it's necessary, and you forgive. You don't hold that grudge. What's really important is this is important for us to learn, but it's also important for you to help the other person to learn that in order to have this trust, maybe you're going to make mistakes sometimes. So you teach them these skills also. The biblical background for trust is, God trusted us to take care of his creation and to fill his mission. Think about this whole idea of being an evangelist or being in mission work or whatever. Who's supposed to do that? Who'd God give that to do? It's you and I. And that's, if you're anything like me, I don't always do it the best, okay? I fall short. But God still wants us to do it, okay? And we have to practice those skills. So the pertinent skills of trust, building confidence. Remember, trust is fragile and it can be broken. Then there's only one thing that can restore trust: forgiveness. Forgiveness. Both sought and received. I'm reminded of Humpty Dumpty, when something is shattered, it takes a lot of work to put it back together again. So when a relationship, for whatever reason, is felt violated or whatever, it's hard to put that back together again. And there's going to be scars. I know in my own personal life, when someone has hurt me, I still look, I just had surgery a month ago. And, the pain is mostly gone, but I still have the scar. I still look at it. And it's like any relationship, it's like that. All right, we're going to look at learning. Learning is seeking information that changes who? The other person? It changes you. Learning, seeking information that changes you. Definition, learning is the ability to glean relevant information about, from, and with other people. So you're learning through finding out more about other people, from other people, and you're also going to learn with other people. Learning about others. We take classes, we read about, and we ask questions in advance. Before I went to Kenya, again, they told us we had to read, I think it was 3 books. Yeah, these are the 3. Bushka, which is about serving in a third world country. We had to read Radical, and we had to read this cultural book. Then I went and found this book about Kenya, Swahili, and found out some cultural things about the people before I went there. And that's the only way you're going to learn. So how many of you have served in a third world country? Anybody? Okay. What did you do to prepare yourself for it? Did you go through any training? You did learn the language? Okay. And for me, learning the language, I might have learned a few words I couldn't even tell you. Swahili is, but I've learned some in, Spanish, and I've gone to Haiti and Creole and tried to learn a few words. But it's hard, especially as we get older, to take that kind of time in that. So. So learn about, from, and with other people. And we can do that by reading and studying people. So learning about others. We take classes, read about, and ask questions in advance. Major dangers of learning as we seek information that changes you is it's the virus of the educated person. How many here have got a master's degree? You're at the most risk. Okay? The smarter you get, the sometimes more isolated you get yourself. So the major dangers is the virus, and we're going to learn about the virus's learning stops. It was funny. We've been interviewing candidates for a youth pastor position at our church, and we asked the guy, he's just gotten done with his divinity degree, and are you interested in pursuing any further? And he said, not right now. I just feel like I'm washed out, after 6 years of going to college, okay? But he says, I'm open to it in the future. But I think sometimes you get to the point is, I got all the knowledge I need, I don't need to do it anymore. The other danger of the virus of an educated person is that we construct answers to all their problems without first learning the issues from them and building a response with them. Do you see what happens here is you think because of all your education and knowledge, you've got the answer, you've got the solution, and you don't really take the time to try to talk with them and learn from them what are the issues that impacted you. And if you don't do that, you don't build that relationship with the person. Next one is friendship building becomes unnecessary since we already know what they need. Therapists and people like that really have to fight this, okay? As they, you could think you've got the solution because of just your past experiences and all your training. We turn others into objects. They are no longer human, but they are objects that need our wisdom, presence, answers, and resources. So that's part of the virus too, is we just turn people into being these objects. These are the people that need me, and we don't think of them as being human people, people that we need to build a relationship with. We create dependent relationships. Think about that one. Is you come to the therapist or the person can't make decisions. You're not helping them become independent, but they're waiting till the next time you come. They just need me there. And you like that feeling. A lot of people like that feeling of being needed and valued. But you're not helping them become independent, and that's our goal. And we form stereotypes without ever engaging their world or culture. It's them and us, And that's hard when you're dealing with, the residents at Wings of God, because you're going to think of them as something different than you. And trying to build that relationship is really important. Learning from others is the next step. Learning from others is more powerful than learning about others. Because, and this is what's important, it's more powerful to learn from somebody because it honors them. When you can sit down and just talk with your resident or somebody and with the attitude that you want to just find out something about them, do you know how that makes them feel? It makes them feel valued, and it really does honor them. It gives them permission to be honest and not just tell us what they think we want to hear. So when you build that relationship and you're talking with them, if it's over coffee or you're just spending time with them, and they sense that they can just be honest with you, and they don't have to try to think, oh, what does that person really want me to say? But they're just being honest with you without being judgmental or anything. Establish interpersonal awareness through dialogue and open communication. It establishes interpersonal awareness. So when you let them start talking and they can start seeing what their own issues are, it's really important. Learning with others is the next one. This wonderful form of learning assumes that the best learning happens in relationship, in mutuality, in partnership, where neither side is above or beneath. And what we really like is when you have the opportunity, like in a mentoring relationship or serving at Wings of God, is that you're doing a Bible study together. It's not like you're teaching them, but you're learning and you're looking through the Bible or you're going through a study book or whatever together, and you're both learning things. I don't know how many of you have ever read Scripture, and maybe the two of you are sitting there and reading a Scripture. One person gets one thing out of it, and another person gets another thing out of it. How does that happen? I've had that, or if you read Scripture once and put a little footnote or something, and you go back 2 weeks later or 2 years later and read that same Scripture, you get something entirely different out of it. And when you can appreciate somebody else's understanding and just sort of look at it as a partnership, it's much more valuable. So the biblical background is iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. You can always learn from somebody else. Doesn't matter who they are, you can learn something from them. And the skill for this is just practice, practice, practice. You got to fight off some of this, your tendencies, and just try to practice these skills. Learning the biblical foundations for change. All right, definition: letting the Scripture speak both to affirm and to correct. So as you go through Wings of God, and if you're trying to serve there, these are opportunities that you have of learning through biblical foundations for change. How do you help someone else change, and how do you change yourself? There's two particular doctrines that inform our thoughts about learning from a biblical perspective. Number one is grace. And grace is God's goodness and generosity offered to those who don't deserve it. That's all of us, folks. And there's two types of grace here that is in the Bible. There's special grace. This is God making salvation available to sinners. Special grace, God making salvation available to sinners. And there's common grace. Ways God benefits all people everywhere. And when we look at common grace, the ways God benefits people everywhere is, number one, is his restraint of evil. I mean, if we got what we deserve, can you imagine? And if God is constantly out there watching over us. I mean, there are a lot of things that could happen that God prevents from happening. And not everything is prevented. I mean, we just saw that in Connecticut. You know, I've had more people. I just did a Bible study with the guys at KPEP on why does God let tragedies happen like that? Why? And it was a profound Bible study that we did. It took 2 weeks to get through it, but he does sometimes restrain evil for us. Oh, went the wrong way again. His provision of sunshine and rain for the just and unjust. You know, people will get to experience the good, and sometimes they don't deserve it. But, you know, both the good and bad get to sometimes benefit from God's grace. His restraint of his anger. Again, sometimes we get what we deserve. Sometimes we are treated with a lot of grace and restraint. And withholding of his judgment. We know as Christians there will be a judgment day. But right now he's withholding his judgment often. And the revelation of his eternal power and divine nature. There's another important doctrine that we need to know about for biblical foundations for change, and that is that the priesthood. You and I are both priests. It doesn't take a pastor to be the priest. But the Bible says all believers are a holy priesthood. So, there's a vertical and horizontal dimensions of priesthood. Is we all have equal access to God when we look at it, and we have equal responsibility to share our understanding of God and his purpose to one another. So we have to have this understanding. Just because this person doesn't just like me, they also have access to God too, okay? They have equal opportunity to have a relationship with God. Sometimes I think we are special, okay? And then the other one is we have a responsibility towards each other. So the pertinent skills are we have to listen, allowing the other person to have access to our mind and heart. We have to respond. Responding, evaluative, giving your judgment, which is least effective, okay, is where you start, when you make a response that you're trying to give your point of view of it and your judgment about it. Probing, you could ask probing questions that help you respond when somebody is saying something. Or your interpretation, saying back in your own words. And you try to say, is this what I think you're saying? And you ask the question like that. And then support, when feeling are being expressed and empathy is appropriate. Understanding, asking for more clarification, illustration, or detail. So these are the ways you can respond. And then dialogue contributes better communication and results in longer relationships, truthful sharing without manipulative motives, each committed to the best interest of the others. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. So the best one is to have dialogue with somebody where you're just sitting and talking. Yesterday, I've been mentoring a gentleman, and we just sat and talked. And it's sometimes hard to just listen. But dialogue is both communication skills, talking and listening. And you have to allow that communication to occur in order to really help someone and to serve someone. All right, so understanding is serving or seeing through others' eyes. We're looking at that step of understanding, seeing through others' eyes. The definition is the ability to see patterns of behavior and values that reveal the integrity of a people. In other words, the ability to see how the pieces of cultural puzzle fit together and make sense to them. I've got this little puzzle here. Have you ever tried to put a puzzle together upside down? Just the backside? It's not very easy, is it? All right, you really have to study the pieces and then that. But when you've got the picture side, you can do much better at it, okay? And that's what that is saying, is that you've got to look at what makes that puzzle, okay, and puts it together. The assumption is people don't usually act randomly or stupidly, but they're thinking or acting out of a larger framework that makes sense to them. It works for them and gives them meaning and control in their lives. Can I get a volunteer to come up here for just a second? Someone? No one? Come here. Yeah, come here. What I'd like to do to illustrate this, can you put your hands together? These people are in bondage, okay? And what we don't understand is there's a lot of things that came in to make this happen, okay? There's sometimes lack of education. Most of these people have went through some sexual abuse. There's physical abuse. There's drug problems. There's just a lot of issues that have accumulated over their life, okay? And what we don't understand sometimes is all we see is the chain. Can you break that chain? You can't, okay? And what we have to try to understand is what got them to this point. And as you start revealing some of these things through a relationship, because you can't just assume somebody's going to tell you flat out the first time you meet them what their problems are. But as you get to know them and they start revealing that, and you can help them release these chains, and you know, that's the only way we're going to break some of this bondage, is by gradually removing the layers, okay, and seeing what it is. It's also, you know, illustrated through a tapestry. Have you ever looked at a tapestry from the backside? What's it look like? Pretty messy, right? What do you think that is a picture of? Anyone got an idea? You don't know, do you? You're seeing all the confusion and the messy side of it. But when you turn it over, look what it is. It's a beautiful tapestry. And when we can start looking at people's lives like that, and we don't look at the messy side of it, but we look at that they are still God's creation and creature, and we try to look at the beauty of it and help them see that they are the result of a lot of different things. We each come from different backgrounds. There's things that happen in my life I wouldn't wish on anybody, okay? And we each have those stories. But every person has a beautiful side. And we need to try to get to understand what made that happen. So understanding is seen through people's others' eyes and the biblical background there. I think you guys have those scriptures there. Pertinent skills, we remember you aren't superior. Stop comparing. Look for good, beauty, and common grace. And perspectivism, getting to know the other person's perspective. Know how they see things. This doesn't mean we set aside any of our biblical principles. We just get a deeper understanding. Nobody's asking you to agree with sinful behavior. It's just helping to understand what created this in their life and why they are where they are today. And check your motives. Check your motives. Section on this is serving is becoming like Christ to others. Becoming like Christ to others. And the definition is the ability to relate to people in such a way that their dignity as human beings is affirmed and they are more empowered to live God-glorifying lives. All right, the biblical background for this one is Jesus lived among humans for over 30 years. He knew what he had to do to serve humankind. He had to die. But between the time of his birth and death, and especially during the 3 years of his public ministry, he served in two ways. Calling people to repentance and faith and doing good. So if we're going to follow in Jesus' footsteps, if we are, as we like to be labeled Christians, and that's being Christ-like or little Christ, we have to take on these same two qualities. So the skills to do this is, remember, serving always includes relationships, even if it's brief. It always, you think about when Jesus ministered here on earth, it was always in relationships. Always treat others as equals. The servant respects those served because of their God-given dignity. and be challenged by the thought that the person served feels empowered because they have encountered Jesus, whether they consciously recognize him or not. Now that is where I find it is to be the most convicting. Again, you and I are called to be Christ's hands and feet, voice in this world today. And think about that. You are Christ to these people. You are representing Christ. And hopefully our residents, the community as we serve, will recognize Christ through us as we serve. Because remember, Christ is in you. And that is the most important thing, is that as we attempt to serve in this ministry and wherever as Christians, we have to remember that we are called to be Christ-like. All right, as another model that some people have argued is that instead of this being, you have to start at that lower step in order to serve to get up to the serving point. This model says that basically the same thing, but instead of working through each one, you can get in there anywhere. Okay, you have to be open, you have to have acceptance, and it's sort of like none of it. It's not like a building step; it's like a circle, and you can jump in anywhere. But they had the same requirements. You still have to have all of them, but it's not. This model that I presented to you said that you got to start at the lower level. In order to get to serving, you got to do all the steps. And this one just says you can jump in anywhere, but you still need to do it all.